On the top of the list would have to be the kind of unique opportunity to teach the band for 4 years while my daughter Catherine was in the band. She was in the color guard. I could see she was having a great time. I didn't teach the color guard, but I was, at all the rehearsals and got to see her perform. And just watching her kind of grow into that role was really, really neat. And then I would say all the other favorite moments involve the members of the band, the kids as I refer to them, and their reactions, not just to like a great performance, but I think my favorite thing is when I get to see them progress over the 4 years that they're here at the university. Especially the ones that come in and are a little unsure of themselves and aren't the best talent, and when they leave here they're confident, they are amazing young people, and along the way hopefully we've been able to improve their skills and abilities, and a lot of them leave very talented percussionists. So we can't take credit for all that. There's a reason they're here at UVA. It's because of their own initiative, their own drive. But we kind of look to them, I guess, as a barometer for our success, rather than the opinions of others. I really like to watch the kids and how they kind of make their way through the CMB. Thanks to Mr. Pease and I think some of the connections that he had, it's about 4 or 5 years ago now, the drumline was actually invited to Dave Matthews' Hidden Hollow studio. I think it's called Hidden Hollow, here in Charlottesville. And we actually recorded a track for a Dave Matthews song that was released. You can buy it on iTunes. It's called Litho Blitho. It was originally, I think, conceived as a part of a soundtrack that Boyd Tinsley used in a movie that he made. And so here we are, teaching students at a university, and now all of a sudden we're on a Dave Matthews track that you can get on iTunes. That was kind of a neat, experience. The other thing that happens every year, and it's tremendous for the students, and it's a lot of fun for us too, is the guest artists that we get to perform with on game day. And they range from, 3 of the members of the David Letterman band. One of them I know for a long, long time because I was in the cadets with him. But Al Chez and Sid McGuinness and Anton Fig, the drummer for the Letterman band, came. That would have to probably be a highlight performance because of all of the kind of synergy we created by bringing the drummer from the Letterman band here, the percussion instructor here at UVA who teaches jazz studies, Robert Jospe, who's a tremendous musician in his own right, and the students themselves. And we were able to come up with a performance that incorporated all of their talents and abilities and turned it into a really neat opportunity. And I think looking at the students' faces after that performance is a big memory of mine because it all kind of came together really well. They worked very, very hard. I have to put a little plug in for the drumline. The drumline works very hard. The drumline often takes it on themselves to work even more than is required of them by the strict class schedule, and often schedules their own sectional rehearsals to get better at what they do so that they feel better about their performance. They take a lot of pride in what they do, and I hope in some way that I've had a part in that, making that important to them. So I just have to thank them for all their hard work. And I tell them all the time, it's where preparation meets opportunity. That's where kind of the magic happens. And by being prepared, by working hard, when the opportunities come along, they'll be qualified to take control. And at that point, it's not really luck anymore. It's really kind of according to plan. Band camp is usually a pretty intense time for the staff because we have a tremendous amount of information to convey and teach and get a bunch of kids, many of them who don't know each other. Band camp is their first experience with UVA, so they're kind of overwhelmed by every minute of it. And then to watch them leave band camp each year as kind of a performing ensemble that knows what they're doing and really looks like they've been rehearsing a whole lot more than they have been. I think the neat part is the way the kids come together and become more of a family. I kind of stress that in the drum line, this whole family, parallel to a family, and how we kind of look out for each other. We also display what I could refer to as tough love occasionally when somebody needs either a hand on the shoulder or a better direction so that they can perform better. And I think at the end of the day and kind of at the end of their experience here at the UVA, I think those are the things they're going to remember more than, a flam or a paradiddle or even maybe a particular performance. I think they're going to remember their family of fellow students here at UVA, and that's going to be kind of the lasting memory that they take with them, maybe more so than little specifics that we might have taught them along the way. I actually went to the first bowl game, and I was not an instructor because my first year that my daughter was in the band was invited to, the football team was invited to the Gator Bowl. And we actually went down as a family to watch Catherine perform at the Gator Bowl. And that's where I met a lot of the people in the band. I met Dave Knight at that time, because he was doing a lot of the logistics for getting us tickets and a million other things that he was doing at the time. But I got to watch the band out on the field as a spectator, and that was a lot of fun. And I got to see my daughter, performing on national TV, which she would later do many, many times with the band. But that was a lot of fun, and to have my wife and my other children there with us was kind of special. So that was a neat spot. And then when we were invited to Chick-fil-A, that was a neat bowl game too. We got to interact a little bit with the Auburn band, and I think that was great, not only for the members of the CMB, but it was also great for the staff to see another staff. And I know Mr. Pease keeps up relationships with other band directors. We've actually had other band directors come in and observe the band and even participate in the summer camp. I know that the band is very active and had an entire conference inviting band directors from all over the country to come and visit. So I think that there's that level of respect and interaction with other bands. We know a lot of people that we either taught with or marched with that are leading other bands all over the country, and so it doesn't hurt to know what's going on in other parts of the country. What we find most of the time, people will say, "Hey, did you see this band? Did you see this band? They're really impressive." And what we find most of the time is we come back and we really kind of, are really thankful for the opportunity we have here and how well these kids perform and how well organized this band is. That's not to say we're not impressed by other bands, but I don't think you have to look very far from Charlottesville to find a tremendous college marching band experience. The drumline pregame is kind of a neat aspect of what we do. We're the first part of the band that anyone sees in the stands, and I talk to the drumline a lot about that in their role as performers and entertainers. It's a little different than the drum corps atmosphere that Bill Pease and I came from, in that I think the stress here is on entertainment at a very high level, but not such a sort of a judged perfection environment, which is what drum corps is. And the entertainment kind of sometimes falls by the wayside because people are too focused on being perfect and satisfying judges rather than the crowd. So we're out there trying to get the crowd pumped up on a game day, which shouldn't be that hard to do. I mean, here we are, beautiful campus, and get a football team right out on the field, and everybody's all pumped up. There's a lot of nostalgia, I think, for the alumni to come back to the games, and then obviously the students on the hill, and in the student section, they're all fired up and ready for the game. So what we're trying to do is just tap into that, and I think the level, or the thing that I appreciate most about the pregame, the drumline pregame, is that we've been able to change it slightly each year, and we really take a lot of student input, and work that into what we perform so that the students have some ownership on that piece that they're playing. They usually work in a lot of neat effects that either myself or Mr. Cawley might not have thought of. They're quite a bit younger than both of us, and Mr. Cawley's quite a bit younger than me, so they are tapping into things that are happening now that we might not be fully aware of, but we try to stay as current as we can. A little aside, I put together the drumline intro one year, and we used like a bass drop feature for a dubstep piece by Skrillex. That's 3 years ago now, but we had some high schoolers in, and I had them watch as the drumline performed this drumline intro with the Skrillex dubstep drop bass part, and I was explaining it to the high school students, and their jaw hit the ground when I mentioned Skrillex and dubstep, and they're like, "How do you know that, Mr. Zampetti?" Like they figure I'm older than George Washington, but because of the band, and this is kind of another thing that I really like about the band is helping keep me young. I do a lot of running around on a football field that I normally wouldn't be doing. I get to interact with a lot of really talented, young, smart college students, university students, sorry. And because of that, I can't kind of lay back in my rocking chair on the porch and say, okay, you go march that way. I really have to get involved. I think that at the end of the day, the students appreciate that this guy is out there during band camp when it's 100 degrees and we're doing 3-a-days, and he's out there doing it with us. And I think that to some of them that might be impressive that you've got this guy. But for me, it's what I'm used to doing from the drum corps world, and it's good for me. It helps keep me kind of on point and maybe in a little better shape than I would be if I weren't doing it. I didn't know Larry at all, and it's odd because this is another weird kind of happy accident that happened. Larry was also, I was a drum sergeant with the cadets, which is kind of the leader of the drum line, and I did that for 3 years out of my 4 years there. And Larry was also a drum sergeant of the cadets. And so that's kind of interesting that there's two people in Virginia that were both drum sergeants of the cadets. Well, the next part of it is that Larry and I live about a mile from each other in Short Pump, and we didn't know that this was the case. So Larry had come out, I think, to see the band. He might have introduced himself to Bill Pease at the end of the season before he started teaching. And what impressed us about Larry, because Larry said, hey, if there's anything I can do to help, and we get that from a lot of people. A lot of people see the band, they're very excited about it, they think it's great and they want to help. They just don't know what help means. And help means kind of checking your ego at the door and loading boxes for 2 hours, or driving back and forth to a stadium back and forth 3 or 4 times to make sure equipment is where it needs to be. There's nothing glamorous about a lot of what we do as instructors. The payoff is immense at the end in terms of the student improvement. But to get there, there's a lot of little incremental steps that may not be, as you're not going to feel like you're some famous person at a top musical ensemble, because a lot of it is basically grunt work. Larry wasn't afraid of the grunt work, and that impressed both Bill Pease and I right away. And so I talked to Larry a little bit. We learned his background. What Larry brings, which is really strong, is he has a music education rather than an architectural education. And so he's able to incorporate a lot of larger musical knowledge, especially integrating that front ensemble with the marching percussion and the battery. And because of that, I think our performances are getting better and better, because he has the ability to kind of meld those two things together. Larry came on board at the beginning of last season, and his role has kind of just dovetailed really nicely with mine. I was able to step back a little bit, but still be involved enough to kind of show Larry the ropes as he took more of the reins. And I think we work real well together. And I've kind of changed my focus on more of an overall oversight on making sure that the students are getting what they need, that we don't have any students that are under too much stress or aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Maybe they're letting other members of their section down, so they need a little bit of coaching. And that's kind of where I can step in where needed, and also teach technique and all of that that I've gained over 40 plus years of drumming. I really like what's happening now, and I know that Larry has a big impact on this. We're really integrating the front ensemble a lot more. That's a piece of the band that has grown from 1 or 2 people when I first got here, playing on acoustic instruments with a microphone, to now 9 or 10 electronic mallet instruments, and the ability for them to sample sounds that are kind of within the genre that we're trying to play. For example, recently we did a Michael Jackson chart, and we were able to sample little vocal sounds in with the percussion. If we're playing a Latin tune, we can sample things like steel drum, and it just kind of is neat. So I think the way we've been able to not only take advantage of the fact that the drum line is getting better each year, and it really is, and you really have to kind of attribute that to the students and the talent that they have. But each year we're able to do more and more with them. We're integrating more of the marching program now with the drum line than we ever have. And we're finding that the students are so talented that as long as you can present the information to them in a kind of cohesive manner that it makes sense, they're going to be able to do it because they're that smart. They're that talented. Everything I do as an instructor, it revolves around the concept of passing the torch. And passing the torch is really just taking all the experience and all the instruction and all the hard knocks and all the successes and all the failures and trying to roll that into a package of instruction, experience, coaching, whatever, that you can pass on to another generation. And I look at it as not only something that I think about when I'm working with the students, but also when I'm working with new staff. There have been other staff members here before Larry came, and I had the opportunity to work with them, learn from them, and do a little teaching on my own end with them. It's a different focus from the drum corps thing, and some people have trouble transitioning from that kind of perfection focus to a college marching band, which is a different thing. And I think what has helped me, and I mentioned the 25 years between teaching Bill Pease and working for Bill Pease, is being able to step back. It gives you a perspective and a balance that often people who are just in the trenches all the time, they don't see the bigger picture. I was recently contacted by another cadet that I taught with, and he asked me for a recommendation. And I guess in my recommendation or in my note to him, I said, you know, the music on the page and the techniques that we convey and all that, after a while you realize as an instructor, as a teacher, as a mentor, you realize that that's just the vehicle for the real teaching. And the real teaching, I think, is what the kids remember. It's knowing when to go over and say something to somebody. It's congratulating the person who overcame a small obstacle that nobody else might have seen, but you do, because that's what's important to you. So I think that the real teaching is what's important to me, and like I said, the notes on the page or the dots on the drill book are all kind of just the way we convey the more important lessons that we're trying to teach.